there are all of these groups that are making various what they call arcs or seed banks or DNA banks of different kinds, um, that is going to contain the DNA of all this different plant life and animal life, and the idea being that one day we're gonna be better, we're gonna solve it, and then we're gonna have all this DNA and we're gonna make the animals and make the plants again, and it's gonna be like Eden, but we are God. But I mean, we all know that once the climate changes, it's not going back.
Hello and welcome to the Fiction Nonfiction Podcast from Literary Hub, where we believe that every issue in your social media feed or on the evening news has already been tackled somewhere in literature. I'm Whitney, Terrell, author of the novel The Good Lieutenant.
I'm Christian Barter, author of the poetry collection The Ants.
So, all right, buddy, as one of our resident poets on the podcast, I got a question for you. Is there such a thing as apocalyptic poetry?
Yes and no, I think. I think we poets tend to be kind of a terse bunch, and we try to use as few words as possible most of the time. So the kind of world building necessary for a true science fiction book doesn't happen that often in poetry. But there's certainly been a lot of grim poems written about a possible terrible future. A couple famous ones would be William Butler Yeats's The Second Coming, or W.H. Auden's September 1, 1939, or Robert Lowell's Waking Early Sunday Morning.
I mean, would The Wasteland count?
Yeah, but so much of that is backward looking.
Blake count? William Blake, does he count as apocalyptic poetry? That's what I thought of, but I don't know.
Well, I mean, so much of it is rooted in the present moment with those poets, right? They're seeing all of the terrible stuff going on, but so much of it is seen through the lens of the present. And I'm that's certainly probably not true of all poetry, but it seems to be more true in poetry than in science fiction. That's my considered answer.
Well, I'm asking because I feel like the apocalypse is much on everyone's mind these days. We've got so many options for apocalypse. You know, there's environmental disaster, nuclear war, AI taking over everything, some asteroid hitting, earthquakes, tsunamis, infertility. Am I leaving anything out of apocalyptic possibilities?
I mean, how much time do we have?
I don't know.
It just seems like everything is trending the wrong way right now, doesn't it? It's a terrible thing to say, but it can really seem that way. I think a really interesting question to me is why these narratives are so compelling at the moment, and what does our preoccupation with the apocalypse, real or imagined, tell us about our society right now? Has it's always been something we've fretted about, in our fiction, in our writing?
Fair question. And to help us answer it, we are joined by Deb Olin Unferth today. Deb is the author of the novels Barn 8 and Vacation, the memoir Revolution, which was a finalist for the National Book Critics Circle Award, two story collections, and the graphic novel I, Parrot. Her fiction and essays have appeared in Harper's, the New York Times, the Paris Review, Granta, and McSweeney's. She's received a Guggenheim Fellowship, 3 Pushcart Prizes, and a Creative Capital Fellowship for Innovative Literature. But she's here today to talk about her new novel, Earth 7. Deb, welcome to the show.
Hi, it's so great to be here.
So this world of Earth 7, I'm going to ask you about its relationship to Barn 8 in a minute. But first of all, this is not a particularly scenic or healthy place. Can you begin just by describing the kind of world we find ourselves in at the opening of this novel?
Yeah, sure. So part of the reason that I wrote the book was that I started looking a lot at the different kinds of technological band-aids that we are coming up with to try to keep the civilization going in the face of climate change. And so I was thinking a lot about things like carbon capture and about building artificial reefs under the ocean with little robots, which is something that's supposedly about to happen or could happen. And I think the thing that got me the most was the the idea of shooting precious metals and sulfur into the sky to refract the sunlight to reduce
Whose idea
global
is that?
warming. It's a big idea. It's a lot of different people are talking about this. And I started reading about it, and I just thought, this doesn't sound like a good idea. Um, and I don't think it's going to work, or it's not going to work for long. And the idea that we would spend so much time and so much money and be putting all of the great minds to work on all the technologies behind trying to reduce the damage that we're doing instead of trying to actually change was just sort of amusing to me and sad. And I also just kept thinking, like, the world is going to get very strange pretty soon. It's already getting pretty strange, and it's only going to get stranger and stranger. And so I think that it was from that place that I began thinking about the book. And then my husband sent me this article about how supposedly in about 50 years, there's going to be a sharp reduction in the population. That scientists are saying, or researchers are saying that we're going to suddenly, the population is going to drop in a matter of like a couple of decades by some insane amount, like by like 70% or something, and they're calling it depopulation. And I was, I don't know how they could know that, and that's so strange, and all these things, but I couldn't help but just sort of imagine it into the book. And so this book began with that as the setting, that we've been experimenting with all these different technologies, and we have arrived at a place that there's been this severe depopulation, and now here we are. There's like almost no humans left, and the world is completely destroyed. We don't seem to be making a big comeback, or plan on making a big comeback. And now, what's going to happen?
So your main character, and I think I could call her that. There's a shifting perspective in the book. It's written from multiple perspectives. I mean, but Dylan, who begins as a child at the beginning of the book, is sort of the main character whose life this book follows. She grows up in a community of scientists and researchers, including her mother, and they're all working on a project to solve depop, the depopulation. Can you just talk about that a little bit? Like what this solution, sort of how they see the solution, and what mankind is doing to try to solve this thing?
Yeah, I mean, I feel like the book is about extinction, and I mean that's one of the big things that it's about how we're facing what they call the sixth extinction, and I mean we're all very moved by that, right? Like you can't think about the oceans, or the grasslands, or different countries that have vast wildernesses, and how it's all dwindling, and we're just losing all of these species. And no one can think about that without feeling bereft and helpless and despair. And so there are all of these groups that are making various, what they call arcs or seed banks or DNA banks of different kinds, that is going to contain the DNA of all this different plant life and animal life. And the idea being that one day we're gonna be better. We're gonna solve it, and then we're gonna have all this DNA, and we're gonna make the animals and make the plants again, and it's gonna be like Eden, but we are God, and so I've been reading about those, and I've talked to some people who are involved in those projects and stuff, and I just needed that to be a part of the book, because it's, they talk about it in such sort of, those people talk about it with such like grandiose hope. But I mean, we all know that once the climate changes, it's not going back. It's not going to go back to what it was. it's going to change into something else. Even if we stop doing the things that we're doing, it's not like it's just going to, revert to how it was 100 years ago. So, I don't know. I wanted the book to be about that like hope and loss and longing and because really it's strange because that technology and that desire, it's like love of Earth, and yet here we are destroying Earth. And so I wanted to write about that.
Yeah, and just to give listeners a sense of like the geography of this space and of the novel, I'll say what was in my head, and you can tell me whether I'm right or if I'm missing something. Like, so the surface is inhabitable, but very desertified. However, that it's like mostly sand, or at least the parts that most of the book is set in. Then there's like at the beginning, like actually Dylan and her mom live in pods underwater, which I guess are protecting them in some way from whatever happened at the surface, and it requires. Since they've been living underwater, they have to have injections in order to be able to like go and survive on the surface. Is that right? And then there's like a whole different bunch of people who are living in Mars. That's it, and they're doing their own thing up there. Am I missing anything?
No, that's great. Yeah. I mean, I think that my image was that, that the surface of the earth has become fairly uninhabitable. There have been various sort of nuclear blasts and other kinds, all of the global warming that's been going on and, various kinds of catastrophes, radioactive particles and things. And as a result, it's, because of the heat and all of these different things that are coming together to make the earth fairly uninhabitable on the surface. And so people are looking for other solutions, like where are we going to live? And so they build these pods underwater, and some people are living down there, and that's where Dylan and her mother are living. Some people a few generations ago went to Mars, but the Martians, these, earth sourced Martians, don't have any contact with the Earth that we know of at the start of the book, and then that becomes its own storyline. And then there's these sort of like refugee communities that are still living on the surface of the earth in these kind of camps, and sometimes we run into them. There's also like the company. It sounds like there's a lot of sort of like world building, but I try to be really spare with that in the book.
I feel like almost all of it comes through context. Yeah, there's not a lot of that. But I world build it on my own using the clues that you gave me.
Yeah, and you got it right. Yeah.
I guess world built would be the appropriate made up verb there, not world builded. That's what like a 5-year-old would say. All right, so before we're going to talk about the characters in general and talk about the novel and its plot and how it moves forward. But before we do that, Christian and I were sort of bantering at the beginning about apocalyptic narratives in general, and their meaning, why they come up at certain points in time. I mean, in the 60s, obviously, there were those kinds of narratives that had to do with fear over nuclear fission and the dangers of the bomb. And you may have already answered this. That the answer is like, we're in the apocalypse. But I wanted to know why, why you think those narratives are so resonant right now, or have they always been part of the culture and there's nothing particularly special about them today?
I have thought a lot about it. And I do feel like that apocalyptic narrative has always been with us. I think that the thing that's really changed in the last 100 years or so is that it seems to me that in the past it was always that God was going to smite us, drown us in a flood, or kill us all off, or whatever. And it's only been in the last, not that long that the story has become, oh, we're going to kill ourselves, like we're going to do this to ourselves. And that to me is a very interesting development. And if I just think about all the different ways that this is going to that this could happen, it seems like they're sort of building up, and there's just like more and more and more, and so I do think that it's resonant now, and I do think it has always been with us. To me, I think that the one that when I was growing up was the one that I remember so well, was the one that was sort of funny and cute, was Y2K. And I remember it was like planes were going to fall out of the sky and people were going to be stuck in elevators for months and the entire financial system was going to collapse. And that one was so funny and sweet. And we were also relieved when, it didn't happen. And we weren't even relieved. We were just like, we were happy that we got to have all that fun. And so I guess I feel like, it's always been with us in many different ways. And there have been like that one, everyone believed it, I mean, to some degree, we were like, okay, something's probably going to happen. I mean, all of those X's and O's, or zeros and ones or whatever it was, like something's going to happen. Like it was this new mystery. The zeros and ones, like it brought something new to the table that we didn't have before. And the fact that it was going to move from, to 0, 0. That was another thing that was so exciting. And
well, it's the kind of apocalypse about that worried about computers shutting down, where now we can worry about computers taking over everything and then the AI running us out of our jobs. I liked the first one better.
But it was a similar thing. Like the computers are going to destroy us. So
now, Whitney
maybe that's the new one.
Whitney and I are old enough. Okay, we're old enough to remember the fear before that, which was nuclear annihilation. And I remember as a kid, seeing the fallout shelters, and I was scared shitless of nuclear war in the 70s. And so, I think for me at my age, there's a little bit of a sense of a boomerang that we're coming back to that real primal, immediate kind of fear that I remember from my childhood, which went away for a while or manifested in the sort of cute Y2K kind of fear. But just to turn to the characters a little bit, this is a novel and it's about people. And one of the things I found so successful about this book is how real these people are, that they're struggling not just with all of the faults on Earth and Mars and, in the world such as it is, but with the stuff that all humans struggle with in any era, right? And I just wanted to ask you if you would tell us a little bit about this main character, Dylan, and her story, and how you thought of her and kind of what she's like.
Yeah, absolutely. So she grew up with these scientists as a very young child. And then her mother decided that they would move into these pods and live underwater. So she moved with her mother into a pod. And then she barely saw any other people for many years, for like a decade or something. And that entire time, all she wanted was to get out. She hated living in this pod. Her mother wasn't, her mother, loved her in her way, but her mother was a scientist first. And so she spends all of this time trying to figure out how to get out. And, as kids today are she's much better at computers than her mother is. So she figures out how to get into her mother's computer. She figures out how to contact people all over the world with her own computer. And she winds up contacting a Martian and hatches this crazy plan to try to escape. The plan that she comes up with actually isn't the plan that works, but she does wind up getting out of the pod. And then what we see is her living on the surface of the earth and dealing with the fact that there's hardly any people there. She's not that well adjusted of a person. She's trying to figure out what her role is going to be. And then she falls in love with this person. And then I think the story is like a love story, and it's also a story of her, of Dylan, trying to come up with her own version of saving the earth in her own odd way. And yeah, that's what it's about.
Could you read us a section from it's kind of a little bit earlier in the book? It starts on page 32.
She spent a week between the walls of her tiny quarters, and still she felt unready to come out. The atmosphere, the unbearable light coming through the window, the affliction of sound from every direction, and worst of all, the people. Unpredictable, unmanageable, whizzing by her room in no discernible pattern, with their loud footsteps, their unceasing conversations, their sudden shouts that could signal hilarity or alarm. She felt safest locked in her room with her console, from which she sent strings of happy face emojis to her mother, who surely was not fooled. Would Dylan ever stop complaining? Was nothing up to her standards? Well, she did enjoy her small private bathroom so much like the one in her home pod. Home pod, how the researchers met eyes with one another when she said that. One of the few times she agreed to have a meal with them. She had to come out to eat. They wouldn't bring food to her after the first day. She had to navigate the crazy hallways that all looked alike. She became lost again and again. They sent someone to be her guide. She had never felt more awkward in her life than when she had to face down the beautiful man doctor who showed up at her door and offered to escort her. She attempted to make small talk, the absurdity of the phrase, like manufacturing a miniature version of the real item. That was enough motivation for her to learn the way. The cafeteria was another horror, a smattering of researchers who all looked alike in their lab coats, despite being from different continents. They scattered around the tables in messy configurations, murmuring and laughing in sinister tones. Were they talking about her? She tried to take her food and return to her room, but was halted by a robot cleaner who grabbed her tray and swallowed it up in its maw. And she missed her mother, which meant she'd gone demented. The people. She tried to hide her dismay at how off-putting she found them. Up close, the researchers, their skin and pores, their shiny foreheads, their human mouths that could be disgusting in 14 different ways. She tried not to let her horror show. That's just my face, she said. I wasn't recoiling. Her mother abhorred her own body, she knew. Her mother moved as little as possible, her body cracking, cementing, solidifying. Her mother ate nearly nothing compared to these people who mashed crackers into their mouths, sucked drinks the colors of extinct tropical fish. Dylan wanted to be normal. In her room, she was sick with disgust and desire. When she masturbated, she thought of sentient AI wrapped in metal, herself rubbing against it. She wondered if she'd made a terrible mistake. In her room, she kept her headphones on to drown out all sound. She tried to access what had driven her to ascend, the dream. It was in there. She couldn't locate it. She lay on her cot and searched her inner hard drive.
Thank you very much. That's a good example in that passage of like how you've sort of built the world. Things occur, right? You know, in other words, the trash compactor just takes her tray. You don't explain in a detail. It just happens, which is really great. I mean, that's the right way to do that kind of world building. But also, when Dylan thinks that missing her mother means that she's demented, suggests a kind of relationship that she has with her mom. I wondered if you could talk about that relationship as the book moves forward, and how that plays into the work that they both do and end up doing.
Yeah, I mean, her mother is a scientist first, and her mother is all about life. Like, she wants to make life, save life. As a scientist, she wants to preserve whatever life she can. She's one of these scientists who's involved in the recreation of a DNA arc. That she calls Earth 2 or Earth 3 or Earth 4, depending on which one she's making. And so Dylan, meanwhile, is learning about this, and she learns about it from her mother. And she also learns about it when she goes up and lives in in the science in the research facility, and she doesn't like it. She's like not into it. She feels like it's really unnatural, and she feels like it's pretty horrific, and she doesn't really want to have anything to do with it. And then the course of the book is sort of, you kind of learn her own sort of reconciliation to what's happening to the planet and her own decisions about it, and what happens to her mother.
And she has other relationships in the book, but one other primary relationship with her lover, Melanie, who's a sort of hybrid of human and technology. And I think of Melanie's, what's been done to Melanie as kind of exemplifying the sort of short-sighted, shallow culture that has led to Earth's desertification. Would you just tell us about Melanie a little bit and about Dylan's relationship with her?
Yes. So Melanie is someone who, from a very young age, had so much plastic surgery done and so many other kinds of cosmetic adjustments made that people around her think that she's a robot. Like, her skin looks like a yoga mat. Her body almost clicks from all the different things that she had done to it. And she had other things too that become a big, important part of the plot. And Dylan has such a hard time connecting to humans, but when she meets Melanie, she thinks that she's a robot, and she just, falls in love with her. And the two of them find that they have a lot to talk about, and that they have a mutual attraction. And then that takes over the book. Really, it really takes over the book. Like, that becomes the primary relationship for Dylan.
One of the interesting ways about this story and the way that you tell it is that there's no like good and evil battle. There's not like some big corporation that's like caused this to happen, or characters can be misguided or fearful or shallow, but it's not about good versus evil here. It seems to be it's just sort of like a banality of extinction hypothesis. Is that a right way to think about it, or how do you think about it?
Yeah, I mean, there is no one person, because we're all guilty. I mean, there's no one who's not guilty in this book. I mean, there's no one who's not guilty right now. We're all, here we are. I mean, I'm looking around me. Look at this thing I'm drinking. I'm drinking out of a plastic container with a straw in it.
I just drove 3.5 hours from St. Louis to Kansas City in a gas car, even though I had access to an electric one because it would be more convenient to go in a gas car. So I'm guilty as well.
So we're all guilty. I mean, and so, yeah, maybe that's banality, but it's also just like the choices that we've made, like bit by bit, for convenience or for, whatever reasons. It's just happened, and we've not been self-examined enough as humans to understand that and to decide that that's not okay, and to work on it and figure out other solutions, to commit to them. Like, we are not doing it. Does that make us evil? No, it makes us just lazy and kind of stupid and, kind of short-sighted, but it doesn't make us evil. And I don't know a lot of evil people. I mean, I know that they exist. I know, there are people personally.
Yeah, I think so. I would say yes.
I don't know if I do. I teach in a maximum security prison in South Texas, and some of those people are in there for some pretty incredible crimes. And some of them, those same people, I've been working with them for, 7 or 8 years. And I can tell you they are not all evil. Like, they've got some really like deep goodness inside of them. And I don't know, anyone on this earth, I think, who could tell their story in a different way and have a different opinion about who they are and what their motivations are, and whether or not they're good or bad.
It's easier to find evil people in real estate or finance or maybe academia than in a maximum security prison, but that's just me.
All right, maybe so. It's true. Like the billionaires, they've got to be all evil. Those people have got to be evil.
So you mentioned that that we haven't made enough attempt to find the real solutions to these problems that end up causing the world such as it is in Earth 7, which is the kind of world that very believably I think we can all see coming. But at the same time, there's these group of people that claim to be trying to solve the problem, and I think it's a central irony in the book that there's all this energy going into solutions, which at times seem more like a sort of elaborate avoidance strategy. And at one point, Dylan says to the head researcher, Dr. Doss, a solution to what? We found solutions already. We solved, everything got worse. Can you explain why she says this and maybe talk about that irony that the solutions are kind of the problem?
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of like what I was thinking about earlier, about what I was saying earlier, about how we've come up with all of these different ways that we could, keep ourselves going in the state that we're in, and we're investing in so much to make that happen. And really, it's not going to do much. Like one thing that I learned a lot about while I was researching this book was about solar arrays, which, like, what a great idea! Solar panels. Oh my God, it's going to save everything. We're going to just, use the energy of the sun. Hip hip hooray! But in Texas, there's like vast tracts of land being taken over by these solar arrays, and it destroys the landscape. It's just massive amounts of metal, and everything has to be raised, everything. And it's so much space that, animals can't make it over. They are separated from the usual ways that they make journeys and migrate and connect to their different families and stuff. And all of their food is gone and they're misplaced. And, it's so terrible. And all of the different kinds of plants that are there are gone. And then, so it's just all like this kind of poisonous metal. And then after like 15 years, 10 years, 20 years, whatever it is, it's no longer usable. It has to all go in the garbage, and we have to create all. And sometimes not only do they have to then create all new stuff, but sometimes they do it early because there's like a new model has come out that's like more efficient. So they just get rid of all of it, throw it all in the dump, and it's like leaking its, poison into the earth, and then they just get all new stuff. And that's actually kind of an improvement on like fracking, which has also taken over South Texas. I mean, I think part of this came from me driving back and forth to the prison all the time and just seeing all the wreckage that we're doing to the planet. I think that the straw that broke the camel's back was we have these, if you're driving through Texas, you'll see these like wildlife, like refugees of various kinds. You can go to Texas and like shoot a zebra or like a giraffe or other animals. They bring in these exotic animals and you can pay a lot of money to go there and just like shoot it and kill it. Like, it's crazy. So I was driving down the highway once on my way to the prison and I saw a zebra. It was the most beautiful thing I'd ever seen. It was gorgeous, and it was all alone, and it was so strong and powerful, and it looked terrified because, of course, zebras are like group animals. Like, they move in herds of like hundreds, and this was just one zebra, like alone between highways and like stuck between like a barbed wire fence and a gun. And I was like, what are we doing? What in the world are we doing? I'm like driving over like the scene of the fracking crime on my way to the prison, to the place where we keep like humans hidden in boxes for decades. And anyway, it's just a grim scenario. And I was like, yeah, we're messing it up.
So that nihilism is justified, I would say. But also, I mean, there's a love story at the heart of this book. These two characters who sort of struggle against the circumstances that they find themselves in, Dylan and Melanie, who we both talked about. And Dylan keeps like plugging away at her own version of a solution. So I wondered if you could talk about that struggle between acknowledging bad circumstances like the ones you're talking about or the ones that they're living in, and hope, or trying to do meaningful action, something that's not a make work solution or going to cause more of a problem.
Yeah, I mean, it's been really interesting talking to people this last week, and as the book has been coming out, because people do keep saying, actually, it's a really hopeful book. Like, it's a book that's got a lot of hope in it, and and especially like the last third of the book has just a lot of hope, and I feel like the hope comes from my love of the planet. Like, as I did so much research for this book, and as I researched, even though you wouldn't even know it, right? Because there's like practically no research, like you would never know that I did any research for this book, but I did a lot. And as I did, I was just so awed by this beautiful planet and by what we have here, and just by things like the simplest, smallest things, like the fact that two people can fall in love, that it's not and that it's not just like mating to have children. It's not like it's like love. It's this beautiful thing that maybe only exists here, and or just things, even like that gorgeous zebra, or just all of the things that are so much a part of our planet, and so much a part of
or a tardigrade, as you write about.
The tardigrade, yeah, exactly. Yeah, there's tardigrades in the book, exactly, and just the fascinating just beauty of it, and the fact that it existed. I mean, even if it's all going to vanish, like, it existed, it was here, and we get to be part of it. Like, that's so exciting that we get to be in it. We're so lucky. It's just, I just wanted to like celebrate that. And so I leaned heavy into that, especially in the last third of the book. And I think that people are picking up on that.
Seems like a good note to end this on. Deb, thank you so much for being with us today, and congratulations on publishing your book. And listeners, be sure to pick up a copy of Earth 7 at an independent bookseller near you.
Thank you so much. This was such a pleasure, and I really love talking to you.